Hello, everyone. This is June the 28th of 2021. I am Charles Stewart, and this is the conference of the community of people that are presently moving into the vacuum of a Supreme Court of Law for all of the people of the USA. Nobody else is doing this. We know what a court of law is, and we don't see anything like that for the rest of the people of the USA. So, until somebody else tells us that we're doing something wrong and has some reasons that they can back it up, we're going to fill that vacuum. And moving ahead here under, we do like to open with a little bit of formality of prayer. And we don't offend anybody that's not religious, but we do like to petition the God of Abraham, the God of Israel, because we have as referenced in Agenda Item 1, referencing this prayer thing here, according to tradition, history, legend, this God of Israel is a champion of truth, justice, and peace. Okay, and a little bit farther down in that Agenda Item 1, we've got a web link to a document photocopied out of the Commentaries on the Laws of England by Sir William Blackstone. And I'd like to lay a bit of foundation before I jump into the prayer for the nature of this God that I am petitioning. I hope you'll all just at least go along with me, even if you don't follow my particular religious beliefs here, but to kind of introduce it and maybe get it friendly to people that are not up to speed on this particular area of theological and judicial insight, common law, traditional insight, Protestant Christian nations, not the Catholic tradition. Mr. Blackstone says that the Creator is a being of infinite wisdom, power, and goodness. Okay? And skipping a little bit, he has inseparably interwoven the laws of eternal justice with the happiness of each individual, and that if the latter be obeyed, then it cannot help but produce human happiness. The laws of eternal justice be obeyed, that cannot help but produce eternal happiness, and vice versa. If the happiness is sought, we will naturally submit ourselves to the laws of justice. We're not anarchists in the negative definition of the word, being completely lawless. We do submit to the perfect law of liberty, is a great way of phrasing it out of the Bible. But Mr. Blackstone went on, as the photocopy shows there, just briefly summarizing some of the high points, that this seeking men's happiness through the eternal laws of justice is part of the laws of nature. And then the concluding little paragraph there, this law of nature being coeval with mankind and dictated by God himself, it is, of course, superior in obligation to any other so-called laws. It is binding over all the globe, in all countries, at all times, and no human laws are of any validity if contrary to this, and such of them as are valid derive all of their authority, is that right? Their force and all of their authority immediately from this original laws of nature and nature's God. Okay? And this links to the opening sentence of the Declaration of Independence. Blackstone wrote before the Declaration of Independence was composed, and the composers of America's Declaration of Independence knew this. They had read Blackstone's commentaries on the laws of England when they composed the Declaration of Independence, and that's why the opening sentence of the Declaration of Independence refers clearly to these laws of nature and nature's God. Okay? And so this is the foundation upon which we are building here. And hereunder, I would like to proceed to petition this God of nature that in Mr. Blackstone's contents was also the Protestant Christian God. Hereunder, please indulge me as I lead us in a brief moment of prayer. True God, Yahweh Jehovah, please guide and direct this conference. Please send your angels with your Holy Spirit to keep us humble and seeking truth. Only truth and honesty and humility will produce the network, the consensus, the unity of body, mind, and spirit in the body of Christ that is prioritizing truth and justice and peace and happiness for our common people. This is what we need to diligently search for, and it only comes through the divine inspiration that you might provide to each of us as individuals. Help us all to contribute our best, and help us, please, to hold our words and throttle our temper when we might get angry at some of the other people, that some of us might be a little bit ignorant and might be saying some dumb stuff. And if that is the case, please help us to just be tolerant and patient rather than getting all angry with them, so that by love, more carrots, less sticks. Way too many sticks in this world, not enough carrots. Please help us to build a consensus that's honorable and righteous and promotes your holy kingdom on this earth, as did your precious Son, Jesus Yeshua, 2,000 years ago. And in his precious name we humbly pray these things. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Brother David. And continuing on, agenda item 2. This is our right-wing consensus-building conference. We've got it really doesn't matter a whole lot because our groups are so small right now, but it does matter a little bit because Brother Lewis and Brother Michael both had serious difficulties with each other, and there's a lot of advantages to be had to splitting it like this, because when there's factions that have serious ideological conflicts, we need to keep the peace, because we can have consensus building under each faction, and then as we get a consensus built amongst each faction, then we can compare those differing consensuses and try to build a consensus between the two. But if it's just individuals talking and they're already polarized, it frequently gets nasty, and we've experienced some of that in the past, and that's why we split into the left and right wing conferences. Jumping down to the second paragraph there, we presume that everybody in this conference attending here is maintaining the status of a qualified elector, at least until shown otherwise. And we invite, in respectful manners, showing that other people are not qualified electors, because we need to eliminate the subversives from among us, and there's a lot of that going on. COINTELPRO is alive and well. The corrupted municipal Roman Empire government that is presently ruling us, it is sending in its agents in hordes and droves and pouring all kinds of money and rewards at them in order to come in and disrupt us, disrupt anything that might actually advance God's kingdom of truth and justice on this earth. So we need to be vibes checking, so don't be shy if you feel like calling out somebody here, but please be respectful and choose your words and tone carefully to try not to be any more offensive than is absolutely necessary to briefly make your point about the problem that's obviously staring us in the face here. And so far, I'm sure that's real good. Our group's real small, and I know y'all, I'm getting good vibes from everybody so far. And number one, in the second paragraph, any new cases to be placed on our court docket. Does anyone have anything that they would like to mention for our records, any new cases to be placed on our docket? Hearing none. Any new signatures to be placed on any of the documents, such as oath of office forms or jury verdicts for cases before our court? Hearing none. Any public affirmations or denials of qualified elector status? Hearing none. So, proceeding on. Agenda item 4.2. This author, we usually, in times past, I've gone right into cases, but I'd like to make an opening statement on a presentation that I'd like to do. It's the project that I've been working on, and I'm rather proud of it. I've made some good progress, but it's not completed yet. The progress that I've made is in alternative currency promoting through adding additional incentives. And I've got a web link there to a list of the additional incentives. It's the second thing, web link down. The first one is a video where I've discussed this matter before, and I've talked about how I was going to get a web page set up. Well, the second link is actually where the main web directory is for under constitutional government, U.S. Treasury, and public banking. And then the third web link that is to a specific document that I'd like to review here, and that is additional incentives for investing in and circulating the alternative currency of our Supreme Court of Law, the constitutional government of the USA, and our natural law church organization. And basically at three different levels of the same basic program. For the first 3 months or so, I'm estimating, after we introduce here, I'll just read section 1 here. The highest level of these additional incentives will only be available during the first threshold time period where under our currency is first being introduced and where under it has not yet obtained any significant popular usage. We expect this time period to last no longer than 3 months, but it may last longer and shorter. The cutoff date will probably be decided by our counsel, such as in this conference right here. And during this first threshold time period, the highest level of additional incentives will be pegged at 10% additional incentives. This means, and here's the punchline, in good faith and in reasonable exchange for valuable consideration, such as goods or services delivered, each natural person who receives any amount of our alternative currency from any of you out here circulating it, spending it, will immediately have added to their account an additional 10% of the amount of the currency which he has so received. Okay? This means that, yeah, well, I think that's kind of intuitive. At the second stage, it's down to 7%, which is a longer time period. It may go for a year. The third stage may last for 2 years, but it's only down at 3%. And then eventually we're going to cut it off because the background of this, because this is a small beginning, but it's based upon really profound grassroots empowering principles, and I believe the entire gross domestic product of the USA nation is going to fall into our hands. I'd like to flash on the biblical book of Revelation real quick that talks about the Babylonian whore jurisdiction and how she controls all the merchants of the earth. And then in Revelation there, chapter 17, I think, or so, it talks about in one day the Babylonian economic system has fallen because something has caused its whole system to collapse. And if you've done your homework on credit and debt and the Uniform Commercial Code and the laws of commerce, like what Hartford Van Dyke talks about, it's all smoke and mirrors. They're unlawfully monopolizing it through the Federal Reserve banking system, and commerce is available to everybody. Hartford talks about this real well. But and Leroy Schweitzer and other people using the Uniform Commercial Code have also talked about these things, and they've been railroaded off into jail, a lot of them. So the only way they're retaining their monopoly on what the law clearly empowers to the common people is through terrorism. The present government is a terrorist government, and it backs up its de facto Roman Empire municipal economic system through terrorizing common people, from executing our clearly lawful rights. But as we introduce this process, we're going to be taking it away from them, and we're going to be doing it in manners that are going to put Bitcoin to shame. Everybody knows how Bitcoin took off real quick in the early stages. Well, not real quick. It was real cheap. People, knowing what we know now about Bitcoin, I'm sure everybody would like to be able to get a bunch of Bitcoin right now at the price where the first 6 months it was introduced. It was just an oddity. Nobody was really paying attention to it, but then it started going up and up and up, and when economic things started getting crazy, people started looking at it more serious. That's exactly the position we're in, and with these additional incentives, it's going to take off. We're the only game in town, really. Bitcoin is dysfunctional. We're not the only game in town, but we're head and shoulders above the other games. Bitcoin is dysfunctional. It's got inherent problems. Holochain's better. So anyway, that's my introduction under section 4.2 of our agenda concerning economics issues. I'd like to pause here briefly for comments or questions about that little presentation that I just gave. And it looks like we've also got somebody else with us here who just joined. Brad from Massachusetts. Welcome, Brad. Rounding out our circle nicely. Would you like to say hi, Brad?
Good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing?
We're doing great. Let me broaden it out, Brad. I don't want to put you on the spotlight, but please jump in if you feel like. I'd like to ask for comments or questions on my alternative economic system that I've briefly outlined a little bit of it. I know there's a whole lot of blank spaces, but I just filled in a few blanks there a little bit. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or constructive criticism on what I outlined about my alternative economic system here? I yield.
This is David. Charles, this is David from Texas.
I think David from Michigan started speaking just a smidgen before you there, David from Texas.
Thank you. That's a refugee from Michigan. Thank you. Just a quick question, two of them actually. One, I was wondering if you're expecting John Root John Root to come to this conference and discuss, give his input on some of that financial stuff that you were talking about. Number two, I see that there's area code 313 also on the conference call that typically is Wayne County, and I was just I don't recognize Savigny L. So I was just wondering if he might introduce himself.
Sure. Antoine, would you like to introduce yourself to David and everybody?
Hello, David. My name is Antoine Pierre Daniel. I'm out of Detroit, Michigan, part of the Republic. And I'm glad to be amongst you all. I've worked with, I've gone to a few Lewis's meetings on the Grand River in the past, and I just look forward to working with you all again so that we can help the masses.
Thank you, Antoine. And footnote, when you're, I think you can switch back and forth between speakerphone, and your mode there was kind of weak. If you could go in the other mode when you talk there, that would be a little bit better. It's rather difficult to hear you the way you were talking, but I think we got most of it. David, do you recognize Antoine? David?
I do not. I don't recognize him. Sorry about that.
If you heard what he said, he says he's been working with Lewis. He knows Lewis quite well, so yeah, they're broadening out from that. If we might switch on over to your question about John Root, I do look forward to interacting with John Root on this alternative economics issue very much. But John's got his mind already fairly well set and solidified. When us older people get set in our ways, it's a little bit difficult to try to bring them around to other ways of thinking. And I'm going to try to fill in the blanks before I go inviting John in for a full constructive criticism. I'm sure he'll be pointing out what he perceives as faults with my system. And of course, I would be glad if he was right here, and he's on the invitation list. But I'm at this point, I'm kind of gun shy. John and I have had some pretty serious debates about general strategy here, and I want to get my system up and running before I invite John into that little revisit that debate with him again. Does that answer your question, David?
Well, it did to a point. Is he now gone back to the leadership position with the Beacon 37? Maybe Nikki would have more information about that.
Brad's here. Between Nikki and Brad, would either of you care to fill in blanks for David here on what the current status is with John and his interaction with the Republic? Brad, Nikki?
Yeah, this is Brad. So the Republic has gone Sanadaya, and we have gone all the way back to where the last lawful actions that took place in what was supposed Congress. We've gone all the way back to that point. So the fact that he was voted out unlawfully is a moot point at this moment. So he's still part of the Republic. We are having conversations about getting our own bank in the near future here.
I may have lost contact.
I'm sorry?
Call back in.
I believe that Charles must have lost his phone contact. He may have. He may need to get another phone, but the recording's still going, and if you can keep on going, Brad, I'm listening, and I'm sure he probably got his sound.
Okay. So we're having discussions about getting our own bank. We already have a system in place where we can have our own currency issued here in Massachusetts. So we're kind of working on similar things. We're just waiting for. I'm currently under an NDA for some things that I'm working on. Otherwise, I'd be more than happy to share, but can't happen at this moment. Just hang on to your hats. There's a lot of things going on, but again, we've heard that before too. So we've been on. Monday's a big day for us on Massachusetts here, where I've been on calls all day, on and off, since 10 o'clock this morning. And it's the same with him. His other half kind of gets a little bit irate when he spends the whole day and the whole night on the phone in front of the computer. So I'm sure otherwise he'd love to be on the call. But like I said, Republic is Sanadaya. We're Committee of States. We got 4 more states to bring forward to have all 50 states on board. Then we can go back and start putting things back together properly. We've got a handful of troublemakers, like what happens in a lot of the groups, and we're trying to get it all worked out. So we'll get it all figured out. God has a plan. We'll find out what it is when it happens.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. Is Charles back with us yet? Doesn't look like it. Well, I don't. Let me see if I've got the agenda up here in front of me. I think I could. All right, he was talking about the economic incentives, credits. This is a conference. He provided a conference snippet. I don't know if anybody was able to look at that. He says, as declared previously therein and elsewhere, this author, Charles, has actually begun the process of setting up a web page which is designed to give competent introduction to how this entire alternative economic system is designed to function, and also to give public accounting of which individual accounts have received these credits. I believe that the video, did anybody watch the video? I did look at it earlier today. None being said, I'll just give a little quick summary. Basically, he's trying to give aid and some assistance to financially with volunteers that are willing to chip in to assist people financially that are taking leads in the public setting on behalf of we the people, you might say, we the sovereign people. And so he's people. He mentioned people like Chris and others who are in the courts and fighting the battles and undergoing their own costs to maybe get offset on some of their expenses, whether it be direct expenses to some of the things that they're working on, or such things as you know, a phone bill paid or something similar to that for those people. So maybe that was Charles that came in?
Yes. Thank you all for bearing with me here. I need to get a different phone system. What did I miss here? I was off for a little while there.
Well, I just kind of tried to pick up where you left off as far as the financial stuff on the agenda, and I got to the point where you provided that link to your video, that a previous conference call where you were talking about a website that you were setting up and trying to get some financial assistance to people who are more active, and that's kind of where you came in.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much. Did David Pritchard from Texas here get a chance to respond to the issues that we were discussing? David? Either one of you?
David.
I don't think you did, but go ahead. I yield.
Yeah, this is David Pritchard Walker from Texas. And first,
Yep.
I wanted to say that I gladly yield to Dave from Michigan, as if you guys know anything about Texas, we're definitely a sleeper state, if you will. So no love lost there. My only question, Charles, and pardon my ignorance here, and it's a very cliche, generic question. With that being said, is this alternative currency backed by any tangible, hard, fill in the blank, metal? Is it backed by anything of that substance? And I yield.
The quick and dirty answer is no. But similarly as Federal Reserve notes and Bitcoin and everything else, what it will be, what is going to give its value is the expectation that people will be able to exchange it for goods and services of other people. And so this currency, it's an American national currency. It can be a planetary currency, but it'll be divided into the different political subdivisions of this earth, starting with the USA, down to our various super states, then to our individual mini states, and then to the super counties, and then to the smaller counties. And so we're going to have county level currencies that are all part of the state currencies, that are all part of the national currencies. And we're going to be giving generous donations to probably everybody on the conference here, and others that are regular participants. We're going to be giving donations to activists like James Corbett of Corbett Report, people that do good conspiracy research, Ron Paul, Chris Hedges that did the video on that lawyer that is standing up against the Exxon oil companies farther on down here. We're going to be passing out donations liberally. See, at the start of this alternative economic system, we can pass out incentives, priming the pump to give this currency to other people. And as people start getting poor and desperate for economic resources, they'll have our alternative currency staring them in the face, and they'll try to spend a little bit of it and see if somebody will take it. And when people start realizing that we're only passing out this currency to real good activists that are really making a difference, like David Scheid and others that are on the front lines of activism. Many of us here, probably everybody here, is going to get, you're on my list. You're going to get Christmas presents before Christmas. I've got an accounts webpage already set up that I'm working on, where you will be able to go and see the balance of your accounts. You will be able to see how much you've been spent. It'll be similar to a bank account, only there I'm going to do a whole lot that's much more public, so people can see all of the accounts that we've got, and without giving a whole lot of private details, just general issues like we're given gift donations to James Corbett of the Corbett Report, Ron Paul, Chris Hedges, and that lawyer that's battling the Exxon companies, and I'm sure all of you are active enough to know that there's a multitude of people out here doing really good work. And when we start passing around this alternative currency system, and this might go to the essence of your question, David, in that what is backing us up is the reward that we're given for people that are on the front lines doing good work. That's what you're investing in. That's what's backing you up. If you support this currency and try to use it and try to report it, we're going to have more people like Chris Hedges and James Corbett and Ron Paul out here doing even more stuff because they're getting rewards for it. They're getting paid for it in real meaningful terms instead of just the smoke and mirrors that is saturating our current environment. So I hope that kind of points out that it's not just like Bitcoin or Federal Reserve note with nothing but a big pyramid scheme they're staring you in the face. It's not just a pyramid scheme. There is something backing it more than Federal Reserve notes or Bitcoin. What's backing it is the fact that we're promoting good, honorable political activism to change this country in a manner that promotes God's holy kingdom of truth and justice on this earth. So I hope that answers your question, Brother David.
If I may, I'm just kind of also give a little bit of background into Hartford Van Dyke's means of banking, developing a new banking system. Hartford, a long time ago, had created a new currency where on one side of the currency that he was passing around freely was certain court cases and or certain names of individuals in which he had claims, financial claims against. And on the flip side of that, he would have value for each of those claims. And over a long period of time, myself and many others have got claims backed by evidence, and these are hard claims. They have value to them. They are backed by evidence, and at such point that the people have more full faith and credit, belief in that monetary system and the value of those claims. For instance, I have a claim in the federal courts right now against a plethora of people, but including insurance companies and a domestic terrorist insurance policy of Wayne County, valued at over $306 billion with a B, and these are this is a real insurance policy, and these are real claims, and there's real people, and there's real evidence that backs all this stuff up. So at some point where the people have more faith in the value of those claims than they have in the value of these, $30 trillion of debt, promissory debt notes that the United States just keeps cranking out without being backed by anything but the full faith of the people, then it could be a matter of time before the tipping point arrives, and people have more of a faith in the banking of the claims than they do the banking system that's faltering so bad right now. I yield.
Thank you, David. Yes.
Charles, this is David again from Texas. I have one quick thing to add.
Sure.
Without studying this, and I look forward to being involved with this, my only concern is if there isn't something hard or tangible, assuming that we don't have full control of the levers of the matrix and it gets taken down and goes black, lights out, that would be my concern. But again, we can discuss it in the future. But I'm super excited about this, and I think there's no time like now, and I think it's a past time for us to launch this thing. And I yield.
Thank you, David. I'd like to address that briefly. A number of us have been researching the Bitcoin blockchain technology, and we've become aware of a system called Holochain. And even the blockchain technology kind of answers your question in that certain of the files can be made public, okay, at least at the superficial level, and then based upon individual preferences, everybody gets to decide about their own account, but with approval from management and everything, little snapshots, pieces of the larger picture puzzle can be taken for each individual. So he's got a backup of proof of the credits and debits that are in his account and the people that he's dealing with and everything. So, and you've got people you trust, and they're keeping backups of your account, because if they take down Charles Stewart's computer and web page, you guys have got backups. And there's a general backup that you've got a copy of, too, of the public information. And so that means if everybody keeps track of their own private accounts and has backups with friends that they really trust, then we've got too much redundancy for the bad guys to wipe us out. Does that make sense to you, David?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. You see, the redundancy thing is really, really kick butt. That's the only thing that's the reason why Bitcoin is shaking up the Federal Reserve banking monopoly. Is they can't stop it out. It's too wild. It's too all over the place. I'm not a big fan of chaos theory and anarchy, but when you're confronting tyranny and despotism, chaos and anarchy is a good thing. See, the trick there is we've got to move into the vacuum with something that does not allow real chaos and anarchy to come to serious problematic levels. As soon as the evil empire gets dismantled and starts breaking down, we can provide the remedy instantaneously. Move into the vacuum. Keep the blood of the organic body politic from flowing in the streets. We can do that. In fact, it plugs into the whole FEMA thing, where FEMA is actively promoting our own local community emergency response teams, and that plugs right into our townships and precincts, local self-governing communities things. All the pieces on the chessboard are properly lined up to for when the evil empire, Roman Empire model of government starts falling apart, as it's destined to do, God's holy kingdom of truth and justice can immediately move into the vacuum to start providing the remedy that we need. That's how I visualize it. Comments, questions, anybody?
This is Brad.
Brad, yes.
I can. I've heard John's speech enough. I can probably get you some kind of a little bit of an idea of where his head's at, and mine, and we have a community here in Massachusetts that operates with a payment system called Common Good. I'll give you a little idea how it works. So the people that live in that community will take a portion of their paycheck every week, and they'll bring it to the local bank. They'll put money in the bank, and they'll be issued credits, common good credits, that they're allowed to go out and use in the community. All the co-op stores, and I think they have 57 stores in the little town of Greenfield that accept these credits. So when you go in and you turn in your FRNs into common good credits, you go buy your groceries, you buy your shoes, you buy your clothes, you do business in town, and all the money stays in town. And when you use up all your credits, then the FRNs that you put in the bank remain there for use by all the businesses in town. They give out grants, they give out zero interest loans, they have a budget for bringing in more business from local vendors, so that there's always local food and local. I mean, they have even a company that makes pickles, and I've been out there. It's pretty good, and the money that gets left in the bank gets used to buy new police cars and put solar panels on the town hall or whatever they decide. Give startup businesses grants to get started up. It's pretty good system. So, but the idea behind money that John will explain to you is that the money itself does not hold any value. So you don't need gold or silver. What backs money is full faith and credit, and the term labor and the term money are interchangeable. When you go to work and you provide labor that benefits the public, whether you work on a farm and you pick vegetables or milk the cows or whatever, you dig ditches even, then credit is future labor, but money is existing labor. So when you provide work, labor, then that gets turned into value. I'm working with somebody else, Bill, one of the Montana Freemen. We have calls on Wednesday nights, of which Stuart partakes in frequently. And one of the things we're working on is some documents that we're going to be able to rebut the 12 presumptions that the de facto system holds against their slaves, believing that we don't know that we're slaves and that they can assume that they hold certain jurisdiction over us. So we're working on getting all that paperwork turned in, and one of the functions that paperwork is going to do is it's going to allow us to get by the gatekeepers at the county registry, where in most counties they'll only record documents called deeds. Well, all documents pertaining to the people are deeds. That's something that we're going to delve into. So full faith and credit is what creates currency, and the value of the currency is never equal to more than what the currency can purchase or create in the community. So this is where John and I are headed in Massachusetts. I heard the name Hartford Van Dyke. I've had, I don't know, 50 phone calls with Mr. Van Dyke. At one point in time, he was contemplating making me a trustee to his bank because I could understand how to do calculus and keep track of how much money he's supposed to have in there. But he's quite a gentleman. I'm not so sure whether that whole system is going to go anywhere. It is based on liens against the government, so we'll see how that all turns out. But I have some of his currency. Basically, what makes it his currency is that he signs every single piece of currency has his blue wet ink signature on it. I know I was just speaking in generalities here, but that's kind of what John would have brought forward, and this is something that we're going to be expanding upon in the pretty near future.
Thank you, Brad. Do you yield?
I yield.
Thank you. Yes, Hartford is phenomenal. He's contributed immensely to my personal knowledge base. The strongest point I get from Hartford is what he called the money store or the currency store, where each individual posts something on a web page or a community bulletin board advertising their goods and services. Hartford likes to talk about teaching piano, and they'll provide piano tutor classes for children or anybody that wants to learn piano, and we'll give you 20 lessons for a total of $300 worth of credit or something like that. So people are the source of the credit. The individual people are the source of the credit, and the trick is in getting the people to exchange their goods and services for the particular alternative currency that we're trying to promote. And you got to have some kind of a good sales pitch to get them to invest in your currency. And while Hartford is profoundly insightful in a number of areas, like a whole lot of scholars, John Root and yourself, Brad, and others that I respect, and each of you's got valuable insights you're bringing to the table. I think you mentioned there, Brad, that you're not quite sure about how either Hartford, I think it was Hartford you were referencing there, that you weren't quite sure how well he's going to be able to eventually capitalize on all those billions that he's got in these corrupted government official liens. And I have those same reservations not only with Hartford but also with Mr. Root and the Common Good system and a lot of good people that are trying to do a lot of good things. And with all due respect, I think what I'm talking about here, because we're moving forward with distributing the currency to people that are frontline activists in changing this nation, that's bringing about God's holy kingdom of truth and justice. We're actually promoting the cause of truth and justice and peace rather than just an alternative economic system. I think this is going to supercharge what I'm trying to build here in manners that John or Hartford or they just haven't thought about it to this kind of an extent. So I might be proven wrong. This whole system might flop that I'm trying to engineer, but I don't think so, and I'm delighted to share with y'all the progress that I am making. Before we ask for further comments or questions on this issue, I'd like to welcome a few people that have joined with us. Keith B., I don't recognize who you are. Keith, would you like to introduce yourself? Apparently not. Okay. If you tried to say something, you were muted. I see Cindy and Michael have joined us. Welcome, Cindy and Michael. Would you guys like to say anything? That's okay. And it looks like Lewis Hammond joined us. Is that you, Lewis? I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, Keith and Cindy and Michael and Lewis have joined with us. Is there any more follow-up on our alternative currency section here? Anybody like to discuss this issue a little bit more?
Yes, this is David. I just wanted to probably open up a big can of worms here, but we won't go too far into it. But there's been a lot of things used as currency before, and paintings are one of those. And I've done a lot of research into a guy who goes, his name originally was Whipple. His last name was Whipple. And he goes also by, it's Michael Whipple. He also goes by Sky Jones and Siren Bliss. Kind of in that order, Michael Whipple. Then he changed his name to Sky Jones at a certain point in his painting career, and then later he changed it to Siren Bliss. And if you look him up, he's actually still got a website called the Bankers Art Museum at bankers.art.com. Anyway, there's a long history. I've read some SEC cases that in which they interviewed him. And these SEC cases, he names people who have been over a long period of time, going back to the 1980s and 90s, that used his paintings to, they basically crammed them into new corporations and then sold those corporations on Wall Street and in overseas markets and offshore. They basically form these things offshore. So, you know, whatever people, and these things went for, you know, anything from tens of thousands of dollars each up to tens of millions of dollars each. Movie stars were trading them. You can look this guy up, Sky Jones. Anyway, the value of these paintings, they're basically what is the market value. When he made these things, he basically said, okay, well, this is worth, he just told them what it's worth. It's worth X amount of dollars. And he gave, and a lot of them got stolen, and there was a whole flood of the market of these stolen things, and there's a whole big fraud market out there dealing with his paintings along with some of the good paintings, and it's very confusing out there in the art world. But the fact is that the paintings are worth what people see that they're worth. And that they are a currency. They're being used as a currency, and they were packed into these corporations and then sold for the value of the paintings, not the value of the corporations. I yield.
Thank you, David. Any other comments on our alternative currency discussion before we move on to our court cases here? Hearing none, we can revisit our economics issue here as we're moving forward. I think it's good for us to go ahead and make a jump here to briefly go through our alternative court cases, and we can revisit the alternative economics issues again. But jumping to agenda item 3 and 3.1, I'd like to, and I changed the time limit here. It's easy to get bogged down. I thought I changed the time limit. Anyway, I'd like to keep, yes, please limit your presentation to 2 minutes when you're talking about your court case. And exceptions can be granted for reasonable cause shown, but we would really like to keep it brief as we're going through our court cases here, as we're our list is getting a little bit longer. We've got a lot of interesting cases. We need to more focus on getting remedy for these people rather than getting bogged down and reading all the details about them every single time. But briefly, our first case, 3.1, is our coronavirus military police state overreaction and treason complaint. Abraham Duran's brought it before our court, and we've got a jury verdict already worked up. We've got the complaint worked up. Both of these serve as models for other people that would like to bring in, would like to compose their own complaints and compose a jury verdict, because, see, once we've got a jury verdict, then we've got Seventh Amendment authority. And at that point, we've got the judicial power all completed, wrapped up with a nice big red bow on it, and nobody can screw with it as a matter of law. 99%. Very, very solid. A jury verdict is the most powerful judicial process available, and administrative process is inferior to judicial. So this is the most powerful nonviolent process for resolving disputes on the planet is Seventh Amendment jury verdicts. So we're not making much progress on that so far. We're still hovering at about 6 signatures there. I'm going to have to delete Cynthia Moore from, she added her signature, but she's since proven to me that she's not a qualified elector, so I'm going to have to remove her because we can't be having people that are not qualified electors be signing on to our jury verdicts. But moving on. Questions, comments about our coronavirus jury verdict? Any quick questions or comments about that?
This is David. I was just wondering if on that last Saturday call there was a few places in that agenda that I was asking my name to be added. Were those did those occur? My name.
Well, I'm clicking on the web link here to look at our jury verdict, and I think, yeah, I believe I've already got you as one of the signatories. Yeah, you're juror number 5 there. And David Walker Pritchard is juror number 4. Cynthia Moore is juror number 3. I haven't updated it yet. I'm going to have to take her off. Nancy's with us here. I believe Nancy agreed to be a juror here. And I'm number 1. Jim Bleakley was number 6. So we've got about 5 people here, not counting Cynthia Moore. Most of them are here in this conference. And David, you're solid on there. You've been on there for a while.
Yes, I believe that's what you said on that Saturday call, but there was a few others. We can just check them as we go along.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Proceeding on. Section 3.2.1 and 3.2.2, election fraud conspiracy complaint and obstruction of access to grand jury complaint. Both Michael Zarzano of Florida and Paul Nally of Georgia are actively involved in this joint 2-point complaint. And I don't see Paul has joined with us, but it does look like Michael might be with us here. I think he indicated he was going to be busy up until the top of the hour, but it might be after the top of the hour there. So we might have enough time for Michael might be free here at this point. Michael, are you with us? Can you give us an update on this 2-prong complaint that you and Paul are working on, if you're there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Charles. It's full steam ahead. We are taking another angle on this. We're going to be contacting 2 specific counties in Nevada that just decided to go full CSPOA, meaning Constitutional Sheriff Peace Officer Association. They now have signed up their entire county, not just the sheriff, but the entire county. It's the first 2 counties in America that have signed on to Richard Mack's organization regarding being constitutional. And we think we might have a better chance at getting a county grand jury impaneled to examine the evidence provided by Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood, Mike Lindell, and that whole team. And we think that if they can convene a grand jury at even the county level, and we can get this evidence examined before a court of law and have it adjudicated, then it can be used elsewhere, and that will grow momentum. And even though it's a de facto court, justice can still be found there if you've got good people involved. That's proven every day all across the country in courts everywhere. So that's what we're doing. And I know Paul is very involved up in Georgia with his case regarding the petition to the grand jury. And that's about it. That's very simple and short and sweet. I like to keep it short and sweet. I yield.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Michael.
Point of clarification.
David.
Yes, I was just wondering, does that mean that that particular agenda item is off the table now, that it's being substituted with a de facto court of law, as he put it, or?
No, on the contrary, it means we're going at it from both angles, and we want to continue in the Supreme Court of Law with Charles Stewart, and we're also going to continue within the de facto. Justice can still be found in the de facto, so it's a fishing expedition. We're putting out as many baits as we can to get someone to bite, and hopefully we can get someone to bite.
Okay. Charles, could you check to see that my name was added last Saturday, when or maybe it was the Monday before that? But I remember I wanted to have my name on that list.
And if anybody would like to, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I yield.
Well, we don't have a jury verdict composed for anything specific yet to add your name to a list, David. I'm sure Michael and Paul are taking notes of your support, and when we get more formal documents, I'm sure they'll be glad to compose their documents in fashion that adds your name there.
If I may, Mike, in Florida?
Yes, Michael.
Just to respond to David there, I believe in Michigan. Where are you at, David? Are you still in Michigan?
Oh, no. I'm out of Michigan. I am a refugee from Michigan, and I am harbored in another state. I yield.
Oh, okay. If you want to sign on to this, all you have to do is go onto our website, countycongress.com, click on the grand jury petitions, and we have 8 different states listed with the grand jury petition. You can fill it out electronically first, then download it for your hard copy, and then mail it certified, registered, or priority to the court of your choice. Or you can do all 8. A lot of people are doing all 8 of the courts. It'll cost you a few bucks, but it's well worth it.
Well, I'm just wondering why is it an agenda item here, or is this just more of a marketing tool?
No, it's a real agenda item. We definitely want to put it before the court of the people and have it examined, adjudicated, and find a verdict with it.
Okay, Charles, is that the court that you're calling it, Supreme Court of Law?
Right, David. I know it's awful fluid and nebulous at this point, but my vision of common law due process, this is an organic process, and Michael and Paul have definitely got some legitimate complaints here, and they're intelligent enough to recognize the potential for help that our court can bring. And so they've got this time slot that I've agreed to put here on our general agenda to review how they're progressing in their case. And at this particular juncture or future junctures, we will routinely be discussing, are we ready to start moving towards a specific jury verdict yet? Right now, we're obviously not ready to do that. Rather, I think it's right, similar to your case. You say you need help in people composing the jury verdict that's more well-focused for you. Everybody, a lot of these cases, probably all of them, are they're not fully matured in their development here. It's just a rough outline of what we got so far with each of our cases, and they're placeholders, more or less, for as we're moving forward and we get more people involved and we get more popular, we're going to start moving forward with greater social influence on each of these cases, and we're not just going to be a bunch of recluses. We're going to be people with influence. Is how I see the future here. Anyway, I hope that answers your question, David.
It did. Thank you very much, and thank you, Michael. I appreciate that clarification. And you're right. It is very much like my case, which is the next one coming up. If you want to move to that agenda item, I'll hold until then. I yield.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if there's any other comments or questions about Michael and Paul's complaint about election fraud conspiracy and obstruction to access to the grand juries. Any other comments or questions before we move on to David's complaint? Hearing none. Mr. Scheid, you're on stage.
Well, there's not much to dance to right now, but you were quite right that I am doing kind of like what Michael's doing. I am in the de facto court. It's the federal court of South Dakota, and I am I'm monitoring everything that they're doing. I'm documenting everything that they're doing, and I am prepared to get this stuff posted. I just don't have the wherewithal of the websites and things like this. I'd like to get things backed up on websites once they're up. And Charles, you have been putting a lot of things over many years, a good decade now. You have provided hosting to a plethora of my documents that document the insurrection and domestic terrorism that's been taking place in Michigan. And that's the basis of my case that I've got here. And even though I'm in a federal court right now, I have no faith that they are going to do the right thing with this. And so as I'm documenting all this, I'm preparing to I've got the case against the United States, and I'm in a United States court. So so far, the clerk of the courts and others are indicating to me that they are just going to be following suit with the same kind of usurpation of power and doing the wrong thing that I've seen before. So I'll just keep documenting it and then be prepared to present this at a later time, and hopefully I can get the help in drafting a judgment, on this thing. So I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Excellent summary. I'm glad you kept it brief there. Moving on to, wait, are there any questions or comments about David's case before we move on? Anybody? Okay. Thank you, David. Moving on, 3.4. I saw Lewis was here. Is Lewis still with us? Lewis's case, Dred Scott versus Sanford, seeking judicial review.
I think
common law jury.
I think he left. Huh? I think that Lewis left.
Okay. It does kind of look like it. I don't see his profile there anymore. But the essence of Lewis's Dred Scott versus Sanford case is of institutionalized racism. I should have that portion underlined, which that's a primary concern for Lewis. He's very concerned about the higher levels of incarceration amongst the black community, and he believes that that Dred Scott versus Sanford case is actually providing some kind of color of legitimacy for cops and prosecutors to actually prosecute black people as an inferior race in these modern days. And that's a really bold proposition. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's true. And Lewis has indicated that he's doing research on it in efforts to prove that this theory is really true. So I'm sorry you're not here with us, Lewis, but I do look forward to when you can be here and talk about your progress there. Any other comments, and especially if Lewis happens to be here or anybody else like to comment on this issue? I yield.
I would, Michael, in Florida.
Yes,
I think
Michael.
there is merit. There is definitely merit in the observation that there is a disproportionate number of minority blacks that are incarcerated. And also, I think there is a disproportionate number of minority blacks that have been killed by law enforcement. And I think it demands a conversation be started, nationwide as to the cause for these two stats to be, existing. What makes this happen? Why is this happening? And I think it would be a good thing for us to have a conversation about it. Maybe not on this particular call, but this issue needs attention. It's a difficult one to discuss. It's a very heated, emotional, passionate topic, but I think it is absolutely necessary to be discussed. So I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you for your choice of words there. I know you and Lewis have had a little bit of a debate about the actual merits of this. But your choice of words here was very non-confrontational, and I can't help but think that Lewis himself would welcome your choice of words there. And yes, as we might build on your suggestion there, I was surprised to see Lewis actually was here with us for a little bit, but he dropped off. I was hoping we might be able to explore it more, but on the Saturday conferences, we do one Saturday conference a month and one Monday conference a month. Saturday conferences are the left-wing conferences where Lewis is mainly leading the left-wing angle of our group here. And I'm sure, Michael, if you wanted to join with us again like you've done in the past in our Saturday conferences, that now that we've matured a little bit more, I think it likely that Lewis might be willing to jump into actual discussion of the merits of this issue with you in a calm and rational manner there. Keeping in mind that would be in a left-wing environment where the left-wingers would have to have the final say. So, yeah, that's how I would look forward to something like that. Would that sound like a good idea, Michael?
I think so, yes.
Okay. We'll be looking forward to that then. I did invite Chris Cave to the conference. And he's the next one in our list of cases before our court. I don't see Chris in our list of conference attendees. I don't recognize Keith. Maybe he's calling in under Keith's phone number or something like that. Chris, are you here? I don't hear you, Chris. We're going to skip on over you if you're not here. So, not hearing Chris, and the complaint about the corruption in the Nevada courts. We're moving on. A fellow named Shorty from Missouri is at 3.6. That's our next case. Shorty indicated that he was going to try to be here too, but obviously he didn't make it, and he's very concerned about the abuses of Children Protective Services, as I believe David Pritchard has been involved with cases like that recently, and there may be some more of that developing. So we've got people around us that are focusing on CPS issues. But Shorty's not with us, so we'll continue moving on to the other more nationally recognizable cases. The Stephen Dosigener case, 3.7 in our agenda here. An excellent YouTube video of in an interview by the great Chris Hedges of this guy that's this left-wing attorney, bar member attorney, that's taking on ExxonMobil and the big oil companies for their destruction of the agricultural communities in Central America, just totally destroying the lives of Native Central Americans. And this bar member attorney, he's got an ankle bracelet on. He's under house arrest for 2 years because a judge sentenced him to house arrest. If we threw out a jury verdict, I think we could press forward with it in manners that would break that bar member attorney free from his house arrest. We've got more powerful judicial tools than what that bar member attorney is capable of comprehending, at least right now. See, we're innovating with more powerful tools. We could do a game changer for people like this that are being unjustifiably incarcerated. And there's a couple of links there. Would anybody like to talk about this case briefly before we move on to a few of the other cases we're mentioning? Hearing none. 3.8, Joe Gilberti with the water issues. They're in Florida and all around the USA. Joe Gilberti is tapping into deeper levels of pure aquifer water that is supposed to be plentiful. That's why he calls it blue gold water, because it's naturally, spontaneously coming up out of aquifers in the earth, and it can come up faster than the evil empire agents on the surface can pollute it. And this is really profound stuff, and the guy's already hiring bar member lawyers to help fight his case. And he's actually been on our conference once before, thanks to the invitation of Michael Zarzano, who's with us this evening. And yeah, we could compose a jury verdict that would be a major breakthrough if people could gain the comprehension of the empowerment that's available for Joe or any of the other cases here. Is there any comments on the Joe Gilberti blue gold water case here? Any? Hearing none. The USS Liberty case. As David Scheid has brought to our attention, this is a big issue. This goes to the religious issues about what is real Israel. You know, I don't like to refer to those people over there in the Mideast that control that little piece of ground. I don't like to refer to that little piece of ground as being Israel. Israel is not the ground. Israel is the people that comply with the Torah laws of the Bible. And those people in Israel are not compliant with the Torah laws of the Bible, as this U.S. Liberty case clearly illustrates. Yeah. So, any comments or questions on this USS Liberty case and how that might be, how a jury verdict on that might be of benefit to our people? Anybody?
I've been in touch with more individuals since we had last conference about this, and it appears that there is a little bit more interest from somebody, a conservative producer in Hollywood, in the screenplay. But other than that, and it's been sent to that individual, and but I don't have anything new about it. So it is getting a little bit more attention from what I'm understanding, but I have nothing further at this time. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Michael, yes.
Would that be Mel Gibson, that Hollywood producer?
No, but his name has been mentioned. No, I don't know who that individual was who was inquiring about it. They actually did an active inquiry and requested a screenplay and was sent the screenplay and was enthused by it, and that's about as far as I got as far as information. I yield.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Michael. Is there any other comments or questions on the USS Liberty case here? Hearing none. 3.10 is a redundancy. I need to cure a repetition of Shorty from Missouri. So we'll skip that. We already touched on that. Our last one, I think, is the case of Julian Assange. This is a well-known case, and I'm not 100% sure that Julian Assange is a righteous man, but he has done a lot of good work, and he does not deserve to be in jail based upon the charges before him. And I think our taking on this case would not only bring justice in this particular case, but would be a good vehicle for us to promote our common law jury trial process and strategy for bringing justice to the people of this earth. This is a very popular issue, what they're doing to Julian Assange. It has a groundswell of support, similar to that USS Liberty case. And this is how we build our community, is by taking on cases with popular support. When people start seeing what we're doing for cases that need to have justice brought to them, they will start coming to us. Is there any comments or questions on this case of Julian Assange? Hearing none. Okay.
Well, if I may, I
go ahead.
Michael.
Michael, go ahead.
I do have a few concerns, as you mentioned, but the fact that he is hostile to the crime of 9/11, conspiracy side of it, is very troubling to me. I just can't imagine someone of his caliber having difficulty with 9/11 being an inside job conspiracy. And so I'd like to hear his contemporary response to that question. I know he was hostile to 9/11 several years ago, but before he was in jail. But at that time, even, there was plenty of evidence and momentum among the red-pilled people of the world to know, he should have known better than to be hostile toward it. So I just felt it necessary to make those comments about Julian Assange. And I, too, agree that he should not be in jail for the alleged crimes he was to have committed, which I don't think are crimes. I believe they were a service to humanity, blowing the whistle on what our military did to innocent civilians. I remember the very day I got the email with the video of the Apache helicopter gunship killing the civilians, and I think there was a child as well. Anyways, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for drawing out those important points. I frequently put things in the background that are unpleasant, but yeah, Julian Assange disavowed the 9/11 conspiracy evidence. There's problems. He worked for national security. He could just be pretending. The levels of control that the bad guys have, the COINTELPRO operations, are so intense that the best way, they've got a saying, the best way to lead the opposition is to control it, something like that. Maybe I got the terms backwards, but if they set up a sock puppet, why wasn't WikiLeaks dumping all of the files all at once? Why did they release them slowly but surely? There's all kinds of concerns about how it's being managed, how that entire scenario is being managed. So I suspect there's deeper problems with Julian Assange. But right, Michael, we don't need to clutter the issues with that. The lower level consciousness people that even believe that 911 was not an inside job, the real stupidest of the stupidest among us. We can maybe get them to sign on to a jury verdict to free Julian Assange. That'll be bringing the stupid people up to speed, slowly, baby steps, one step at a time. And it's going to take a while to establish God's kingdom fully on this earth and get everybody smart. But we can take baby steps like this, like with the case of Julian Assange, even though a lot of us got serious problems with all the bad earmarkings that surround Mr. Assange. Any other comments or questions on this last case in our court cases?
If I may. If I may.
Is this Cindy? Who is this?
Yes, this is Cindy in Florida. Yeah, you know, this whole thing with Julian Assange, Trump said that he was going to take care of things when he got in office. He gets in office and he's like, Julian Assange, who's that? He pretended not to even know him. And then just recently, there's sound bites of, I think it was Giuliani, who was talking about Julian Assange with President Trump. You know, it just goes to show how deep the deep state is. We have no idea, but they're all connected somehow. And to be honest with you, I don't think any of them are about the American people. With that, I'll yield.
Thank you, Cindy. We do have serious problems with the deep state. No doubt, it is powerful. We dare not underestimate its influence. That's why we need to be meticulous and careful about our homework here, and courageous at the same time, and calling out problems like Michael did earlier just a moment ago on the 911 issue. Yeah, these are problems. We need to identify clearly when we've got problems. Yeah. All right. So, is there, in concluding this section 3 here, are there any comments or questions on all of the court cases that we've just reviewed that are kind of tentatively, at least, in front of our court? Hearing none. And the last little point there, one last call. Anybody like to add a case to this list? Anybody know of any cases that they think might be worthy that are of more of national interest, like the USS Liberty case and the Julian Assange case? We could do other cases. We could, but we'll delve into that later. Moving on to agenda item 4, the news items of national interest in breaking research. Gary Bergman of Nevada will not be with us. He frequently presents us with a little bit of research on the International Monetary Fund or something like that. But Gary's not with us. He says he's got to travel from Nevada to Arkansas to visit his dad, who's in poor health, so he's not able to share with us here this evening. And I've got section 4.2 that I'm ready to jump into, but before I do, is there anybody else that would have a news item of national interest or breaking research that they would like to present here?
Well, this is David. This is kind of off topic, but I was just wondering, you had earlier in this call had asked Keith B. to identify himself, and I keep looking at Keith B. there, and I'd like to ask him if he is Keith Broders. Broders is somebody that I've had many interactions with over a lot of years, and he's been somebody who's been very active and offering his assets at his own cost to the Patriot movement, and I'd like to find out if that's Keith Broders. I yield.
Keith, are you there? Do you care to respond? It looks like you're muted, maybe. You'd have to unmute your microphone there to respond if you care to respond to David Scheid here. Brother David, it looks like we're probably not going to get a response out of him.
Well, in that case, anybody who just likes to listen to the call always knows that these are being recorded and they can listen at a later time. But, it seems like people who are part of this call it's an interactive type of a call. And I will bring up, since we just said it just a few moments ago, we cannot underestimate the power or the disposition of the deep state. And I know that there's we haven't done this before, but there's many other calls that at the beginning of the call, especially on the recording part of the call, they make clear to ask the question 3 times. Is there anybody that is, a law enforcement officer or anybody employed as a government official, that is on this call, and they have a particular wording. I think that Roger Dowdell also does that down in Florida. And I believe that if we're going to have people on this call, interactive with the call, that are they're refusing basically to identify themselves, and I know that Lewis has been really good in halting everything until we get an identity on the person that's on the call. That if we're going to continue to host people on the meetings that only want to listen and do it interactively instead of listening to the recording, that maybe we include a disclaimer, so to speak, at the beginning of our recorded call to make sure that this person has had their opportunity to identify themselves if they are part of the deep state. I yield.
May I? This is David from Texas, if I may.
David, go ahead.
I concur with the concern that at least one member, if not others, have. With that being said, I personally feel it's a waste of energy to chase that rabbit. I can almost guarantee you there's 1, if not 3, pardon my French here, quote-unquote narcs that are on this call currently. And to listen actively in the vernacular exact sense means to be silent. And it's ironic that the term listen and silence have identical letters. So with all that being said, I feel that we are in the light, and I am not suggesting that there's any fear in the previous comment or anyone on the call. With that being said, to a novice amateur, it would be perceived that there's fear of the deep state and fears of the devil. And we do not play with the devil. And I yield.
Thank you, David. That would be a lot of my response to David Scheid's issue, too, that we're in the light. And as long as we're real careful, we're playing a good chess game here, competitive. We're not saying anything stupid. I think de facto COINTELPRO operatives will not gain any net benefit, or they may gain some benefit. They may find Jesus. They may repent of their evil ways, but they won't be able to cause any detriment to us, what we're trying to do, because we're Teflon. There's nothing that can stick to us. Okay, we got God's Holy Spirit protecting us. We're in the light. They're creatures of darkness. They fear the light. So long as we're filling in the details with our honorable motives, we're just seeking peace and justice for the common American people here. See, that cuts them off at the knees, to use nothing, no pun intended there, Brother David. So it is a concern. But again, I think we're sitting good, and time is immensely precious. and we like to wrap up the business call at 2 hours, and it frequently goes by very fast, and then people start dropping off. I don't like to waste time talking about how terrible the bad infiltrators might be in here, subverting what we're doing. We're Teflon. We're in the light. They're creatures of darkness. They're not going to touch us if we play our game right. I believe that. I believe we got God's protection. So, with that being said, I think we should move forward. I can see that we've had a few new people join us here. One of them is Chris Cave from Nevada, that we just kind of sort of concluded our list of cases before the court, but I know Chris has done some current updates and filings on his case. Yes, 3.5, jumping back a little bit to our list of court cases. I'd like to invite Chris Cave to go ahead and give us a brief update on progress of his court case in Nevada. Chris, are you with us here?
I am with you. Thank you very much, Charles, and everyone else on the call. This is a most contentious case of magnanimous scope of the most vast conspiracy to commit murder twice by a bunch of very malicious, vicious, bad actors outside scope, sphere, and color of law. In fact, to the point that you were just having your conversation, which I think could bear some sunshine and expansion on, I will tell you that this individual, right out of the hat in his alleged information and complaint, trying to claim I was a domestic terrorist, and the very first opening salvo or line of his information and complaint, after his technicalities of claiming he's a this and he's a that, and a federal deputy and joint terrorism task force and a detective and yada, 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 and all these other so-called semi-bona fides he claims, he immediately goes into doing one of the most egregious miscarriages of justice that were pointed out in the IG's complaint in the Carter Page and Michael Flynn cases. He claims that I was going to meetings and leaves out the delineating qualifying verbiage, word, term, qualifiers that define the type of meeting it was, to make a broad general inference that this meeting was something to take over their de facto corporate criminal government. However, the part that he left out with malice aforethought was the fact that these meetings were actually termed "We Study Law" meetings. And we were also studying Title 42, Section 1983, Bivens versus 6 unknown federal narcotics agents cases on how to hold criminal bad actors of government to accountability for their criminality, and to do our duty under Title 18, United States Code, Section 4, to report criminal activity by agents and actors acting outside scope, sphere, and color of law. With that, I will continue on now and tell you that I had done a phone conversation and analysis of a potential request to stipulate expanding the time for the opposing counsel's former prosecution team agents to comply with their discovery mandates. I had put in some requests for subpoenas. I made a little minor faux pas, irrespective of the fact that all pleadings are supposed to be to comport with substantial justice and due process, and not to be a game of one-upsmanship by the opposing parties. They did so. And so they bitch-slapped me and denied my subpoena duces tecum for them to produce documents and stuff on a technicality. So and in fact, I was just pulling into a library here to work on some of those things because I don't have internet at home. However, I'm subpoenaing the Federal Bureau of Investigation agency because it is an agency under 5 U.S.C. 551 et sec, the Administrative Procedures Act. There are no lawful agencies. They're all operating under the Administrative Procedures Act, where they never comport with 553 parenthetical capital B, the formal process to make all their internal policies, statutes, and codes and regulations to comport with the process to be broadly and generally applicable to all the people. Not only is it the FBI that I'm subpoenaing because I need to have some R901 parenthetical B1 and B6 audio and video from the Welcome Center there and their adjunct interview so-called room where they did 2 ambush interviews of myself. But also you have to go through the DOJ and the U.S. Attorney's Office to do that because they are the conservator, the keeper of the records, including video audios for those agencies. And when I was there, I took critical note of the surroundings and had the awareness, my years of training as a real law enforcing professional who actually guarded, protected, and defended and tried to suppress crime, not prevaricate it. And so I've also got U.S. Marshals involved with a telephone conversation where I tried to get some relief and assistance in trying to hold these criminals accountable for the many crimes they committed against an ADA senior myself. Also, we have the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, another private for private profits corporation. We have several NGO sub-corporate agencies of the corporate state. The corporate state itself is involved in this as one of the so-called investigating agencies who partner with the FBI and the local gendarmes here in the municipal corporations to try to color me as a domestic terrorist for the felonious act of studying law. It's absolutely preposterous and absurd, but that's the situation we find ourselves in, and that's why it's dangerous to have them listening in, because many times they will intentionally, maliciously, with malice aforethought, leave out material, fact-centric descriptors of the word terms that we use to twist them into their own predatory advantage. And with that, I think I've probably said enough, but I'll let anybody else that has any questions and entertain them if they have any. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Charles.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, excellent conclusion. I would like to do a response to your issue about the concern about infiltrators there, but I'd like to allow others to respond to your very enchanting case here. Would anybody like to follow up with Chris on follow-up questions on his case here?
This is David. Yes, I totally agree. We had kind of moved on from my comment about Keith B. and that you just kind of concluded it and moved on to Chris without giving me the opportunity to make any final comments about that. And I thank Chris for having returned back to that. And I totally agree. One of the things that I have not mentioned that I did send an email out that I included you, Charles, on, and that is that I did get a threatening phone call since our last conference, and it was not traceable. I unfortunately did not have it recorded, but I did document it as soon as this thing occurred, and I blasted it out to a whole bunch of people to let them know. So, you know, even though I am a refugee from Michigan, no longer there, I am still being subject to threats, and so I just I think that as Chris's his case exemplifies that we can have all the light shining on us that we want, but as Jesus did, and they'll still kill them. And using a process that is full of errors and omissions and interpretations of their choice. And I still think that it's very tedious. It's not very tedious to just put a disclaimer at the beginning of the recording saying, asking the question, is there anybody related to the government that's on this call? Maybe doing it 3 times. If you think that's too much time, maybe just do it twice or once. But I yield. I think I made my point.
You did, David. They're not government agents, but that's a quibble. The essence of your concern, there is some legitimacy to it, and I might be able to reword the essence of your concern there a little bit to where I think I can address your issue, and I could modify our opening script, I think, to include some kind of a brief statement to confront the jackbooted Nazis that are trying to come in here and infiltrate and cherry pick and take words out of context to fabricate malicious prosecutions against our people. I think we can address something like that if that sounds like it might be good.
There's a point I should point out to you, Charles. I've got quite a bit of experience and studied observations in court and reading of their documents that may offer some sunshine. Even though the agents themselves may not or may listen in or call, they frequently will try to cultivate, recruit, coerce, bribe, terrorize, threaten, anything else they can do to get some of our constituents, our conservative American patriots, to report what we say and talk about to them. Although, as you pointed out, we are operating in the light and we're doing nothing that's illegal. We're merely trying to restore lawful government to our country instead of this criminal government that has supplanted and seditiously undermined the republic. So with that, if it helps, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Chris. Excellent. I do have a number of thoughts, but we've got another person with us that has been patient in the background. I haven't created an opportunity to for him to introduce himself. Richard Weber, would you care to identify yourself? Introduce yourself there, Richard? 941 area code. There you are.
Can you hear
Richard?
me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Rick. I prefer not having my last name put on the call. I am from Florida, and I am a friend of Mike and Cynthia. In fact, I just came from a meeting with them prior to being on the call.
Excellent. And that sparks my memory. Michael has mentioned a little bit about you, and I think Cindy and Michael sent me a video recording of another conference group called National Assembly that I believe you and Richard, Richard, were involved in here recently. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
Excellent. Would Michael or Cindy like to assume the microphone here for a moment? And I think that particular interaction, I talked with Michael a little bit earlier about possibly giving an introduction to the undercurrent that's going on there, and perhaps even this is one of a new court case to add to our court cases list. Michael, would you like to assume the microphone here and explain what you think is optimal strategy for addressing this issue that you've been involved in with Richard?
Yes, I would. Thank you. What is happening, people are realizing on the national call that there's censorship and control taking place, and due process is not being allowed. It's very controlled and manipulated group of people in that particular call. And the remedy that we're seeking is the knowledge of these activities be known. That is really the remedy that we seek. And that is being achieved by testimony of the various victims of this group. And Rick is one of those that made his claim known publicly the last Thursday night on the National Assembly call. So I think transparency and truth and exposure is the way to go on this, and it has a way of cleansing itself. And agents and provocateurs, etc., they can't withstand the test of the truth, and that's why they're beginning to be exposed. And there's several of these people that we want to name publicly. Definitely Roger Dowdell, Destry, Paul, Charles Pixley of Fort Myers, Rowan of Alachua County, and David the Thumb. Unfortunately, I was very surprised to hear his dishonest testimony or inaccurate testimony. I really don't know his motive, but his testimony was very inaccurate. So, and then of course John Darash, who is a fraud, and we caught him years ago editing the conference calls, eliminating critical comments from the conference calls. And I at one time was a coordinator for the state of Ohio appointed by him. And then I moved to Florida where we encountered more corruption and dishonesty. And several of us in the Charlotte County area end up leaving. Then, of course, you have Anavan rights. Anyone that would defend the Vatican and be a proud defender of the Vatican is not worthy of being any kind of an elector whatsoever. So, and I'm lacking knowledge on Keith Livingway. I've heard a lot of complaints about that group and corruption within, but I personally have no knowledge or evidence to share. That's all. I yield. Thank you.
Is anybody there?
Yeah, I think that Charles is having some difficulty with his phone. I don't know, but I'll just add to piggyback what Mike said, that as far as Livingway goes, I've got some firsthand experience with him, and I've years ago, and I let Charles know about it. We've got some things up on the web to let other people know. And so, just to confirm, yeah, without getting into details, he's definitely, I wouldn't classify him as being a qualified elector. I yield.
Thank you. David, I lost connection here for a bit. I'm sorry about my dysfunctional phone system here. Yes, the summary of the case with the problem with Roger and of Dave Design or something like that. I forget his last name. But he goes by Dave and the Thumb. Michael, can you bring me up to speed? Did you conclude? Are you thinking of trying to bring a formal complaint against any of these people in our court, or what are you thinking there, Michael?
Yeah, I think it would be the proper path to take. These people need to be confronted with their behavior, and I think it would only be fair and proper to do so in a public way and give them a chance to respond. The recordings of their own words, speak for themselves. I don't know how they expect to wiggle out of the facts of their own words, but I think we want to go forward with due process on their behavior and examine it with a group of we the people, our peers, to examine their behavior.
People of good reputation in our community. We know a number of people that have got good reputation. And when we expose the evidence of what's going on here, these people of good reputation are quite likely to be inclined to say, there's something wrong here. We got a problem. So yeah, I'll be glad to work with you on creating a rough draft of, we'll expand our list of cases if you really want to move forward with this, Michael, and we can put add your case to our list of cases here that is constantly expanding, and this is kind of hearkening back to with Brad in Massachusetts and the issue that we raised about Chipper,
right?
Because at that point it was a person that's posturing as an enlightened member of our patriotic community that is acting like an honorable patriotic leader here, and we gave notice, public notice, and Brad dutifully informed Chipper, invited him to come on in and defend himself, and that produced some real quality enlightenment for us all. And I think our general conclusion was that Chipper was a problem, or at least at that point in his life, he was bringing forth problematic energies. I don't want to get into the details of what we decided right now, but at that point, or at the point that we bring in accusations against Roger and some of the others surrounding him that you've mentioned here, Michael, we can similarly give notice to them that we're holding hearings and we're discussing this matter in conference, Saturday, Monday, whichever one it might be. I think Lewis might have welcomed this kind of a case in the Saturday conferences where they're working with him too. So we can put it on the agenda. We can invite them to come in and defend themselves. And then at that point, whether they appear or not, our conference will be in a position to render judgment concerning the merits of the complaint based upon the evidence presently available before our court. If they deem appropriate, if they deem that we have indulged these people long enough and the issue is so pressing that some kind of a judgment does need to be rendered, even if they don't show up, the assembly. Hopefully it'll eventually be 12, but even a smaller group can render some type of a unanimous judgment of the community about the merits of the accusation brought against Roger and the others. Okay? At that point, we'll be moving forward real nicely. Yes. Who is talking there?
This is Rick in Florida.
Rick, please
Charles,
go ahead.
My question, I'm going to direct this question to you, Charles. When a person is given advice such as questioning the judge's authority, asking for surety bonds, and also making the statement that the Bar Association stands for British Accredited Registry. Those are all things that took place in my situation, and I have since questioned I have never been able to find any facts that states that the bar stands for British Accredited Registry, because I've had several people who have family members who are lawyers who, when you bring up that argument, it kept them from getting involved in the assembly that we were trying to build here in Manatee County. So can anybody enlighten me on the British Accredited Registry, and is it appropriate or proper to ask a judge for her jurisdiction and her surety bonds and all these things? Because I can assure you, I was ganged up by 12 deputy sheriffs in the courtroom, had the crap beat out of me, and I was given 6 months for contempt of court. That was my result from asking those questions, which ended up being a whole year. Pardon me?
Pardon me?
I yield.
Okay, I'm sure that was painful, Richard, and traumatic. The British Accredited Registry issue, I've done research on it. I can't find any proof, and I'm inclined to believe it's true, but I don't make those kind of arguments because I can't prove it.
If I may.
Go ahead. Who's talking, please?
This is David. If we still have Chris on here, I read Chris's grand jury thing, and he just sent it out recently. I think it was his that I saw. Chris, am I right that you came out with as an authority on that subject?
You are correct.
Well, Chris, do you have proof that the bar associations that word bar is indicative, it is directly linked to British Accredited Registry?
Well, I would certainly think it was more likely British Archon's registry, but there are several different potentialities.
Chris,
am I wrong that you did not? I thought you sent something out just within the last day or two with your court case of dealing with the grand jury argument.
This is true. I'm in a place where it's hard to talk right now. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Okay, well then, all right, so maybe we can return to this when he's available, but I believe that Chris had some language in his arguments that he presented in a formal court case that might be able to address Rick's question there. I yield.
If you can repeat Rick's question, I'll see what I can do.
Do you want to repeat, David?
Well, that wasn't my question. That was Rick's question.
This is Rick, man.
Rick, please go ahead.
Okay. I was given direction to ask a judge, first of all, for her surety bonds and her jurisdiction, and a certain individual throws around the British Accredited Registry is what the bar stands for, and when I was trying to recruit people into the assembly here in Sarasota and Manatee counties, they had family members who disputed the claim of bar being standing for British Accredited Registry. So I've asked the question on the national call, and I've asked the question on the state call. Roger Dowdell's assembly calls, and have never received an answer, though. And Destry was out of, I believe he's out of Alaska now. He was the one who was adamant about, oh yes, but I needed some kind of viable proof to go back to these friends of mine who had family members that are lawyers to show them. And it's been over a year now since I've asked the question and have never gotten an answer. So, looking for an answer on the British Accredited Registry standing, and that's what the bar members are engaged in. I yield.
Chris? Chris, are you there? Chris is apparently...
May I?
Michael.
Yeah, I just want to echo the same comments and question. I, for 20 years, have been trying to prove what the BAR stands for, and I, too, have been told by many people, British Accredited Registry, but I have not been able to prove it with any sort of substantive evidence whatsoever. Lots of people claim it, but I haven't had any documentation to back it up in history, and that's
right.
It's just that simple. I have not seen ever any historical documentation, original material to prove it. So I yield.
Thank you, Michael. I'd like to also point out that my personal philosophy and strategy, generally speaking, is to go for the main issue of the injustice of the prosecution on the merits. They're usually prosecuting you for some type of malum prohibitum, victimless crime. That's unconstitutional. It's a malicious prosecution. It's part of a larger treasonous conspiracy to reduce all of the American people to a bunch of slaves. And you're a bunch of criminal jackbooted Nazis. And I don't care whether you're part of the British Accredited Registry or not. You're a bunch of criminals. You guys deserve to be in jail. And here you are prosecuting me out of nothing but brute force. You're not following due process of law. That's the way I like to address the issue. And they don't like giving me a hearing because of that. And they usually avoid prosecuting me, at least so far, knock on wood, because I cut to the heart of the issue, and everybody in the courtroom gets a real clear earful of real law and real justice, rather than being distracted about esoteric mumbo-jumbo, metaphysical mumbo-jumbo issues like whether or not BAR stands for British Accredited Registry. I think it's a red herring issue that's probably inserted in our patriot community, at least partially, by people that are purposefully telling us to make those kind of arguments in order to disempower us and discredit us. And I think that's likely part of why you were fed that by Roger there, Rick. If that gets to the essence of your concern, and I think there was a couple of other issues that you were talking about too, but yeah, would you care to respond any further here, Rick?
I completely agree with what you're saying, actually. And the thing is you know, I'm sure you've heard of Mike Crescente, help me out here. The gentleman that's looking at jail time right now.
Christopher Hopkins.
Christopher Hopkins, and yeah, I'm sure that, you know, it just appears that there's information or directions that are given by Roger, and also John Saunders is another member of that little that group. But it just appears, and as from being, I'm not going to call myself a victim because I'm not a victim. I took advice that I thought was proven advice, and So I went into the courtroom thinking that I was doing the right things by questioning the authorities because that's what I was instructed to do. But these people that are given these instructions, if this is false information, they should be held accountable, just like we would hold anybody accountable for giving information that's not correct and putting people in jail. And I mean, I spent a year in prison, and I mean, this was only 3 years ago. So I'm 61 years old, and it did a lot of damage to my business. I'm a business owner, and yeah, I was completely blindsided by what transpired, and Roger and the whole group just disappeared. Never followed up with me. Never tried to reach out to me. So, but like I said, I'm not going to call myself a victim. I'm a fighter, always have been, and I'm continuing on with my company and my business. And but it hasn't been an easy road. I yield.
If I may.
Thank you, Richard. Cindy, please go ahead.
Yes. Here's my biggest problem with these people, and I've only been involved in any of this for 3 years now. And I tell you what, talk about a crash course. I am like just shocked at every call or every meeting I go to. It's a new experience. But the thing with Roger, I have nothing personal against this man. What I do have a problem with is that he wants to talk all this crap about the de facto court, and no matter how true it is, he is guilty of it himself. He has demonized Michael, and let's just forget the fact that he's my husband. Truth is truth. They have censored both Michael and I off the national call and the Florida call. We're not allowed to say anything. If they knew we were listening in, oh my gosh, I don't even want to begin to know what they would do. This last Thursday night on the national call, someone who was on this call Saturday said false information to Roger about Michael and you, Charles, and we have no space to defend ourselves. It's not a fair court that Roger provides. It's completely biased, and it's worse than what we have. And I just, I'm not sure why I felt the need to say all that, except for that. That's how you're going to know the truthers from the rhinos or the liars, whatever, is they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And Roger Dowdell doesn't even begin. He doesn't even crawl the crawl. He just talks it. I yield.
Well, may I? This is Rick again.
Richard, go ahead.
This is Rick in Florida. Cynthia, I know why you brought up that conversation, why you brought it up, and I can add to what you just commented on. They tend to use the you're attacking someone, and so if you're attacking someone, they just completely dismiss you, and that's what took place on the Thursday night call when I was questioning Roger about whether or not he gave me the advice, and it came across, and I was reprimanded, so to speak, by Destry and by Roger as well. But Destry was, well, you're attacking Roger, and I'm like, I'm not attacking anyone. I'm telling you what took place. If that's an attack, then I completely misunderstand what an attack is. I'm stating facts that actually took place. And in my court case, which I was also advised to fire my attorney, which I did have I had two at one time, and fired both of them at the request of Roger to defend myself. But again, when you bring out the facts and you're right away told, well, you're attacking someone and you're dismissed, that right there gives you a pretty good idea. And I'm hoping other people on the call saw that and realized, why is it when someone brings up a fact, it's called an attack and dismissed, and that's exactly what happened. I yield.
Yeah, they actually make the de facto court look legitimate.
Exactly.
Understand?
Is somebody else saying something? I would like to point out that if I'm collecting my thoughts here correctly, thanks, Richard, for highlighting the issue of the attack. They're posturing as the victim here, okay? What they're doing is they're obstructing justice, they're obstructing due process of law, because in good faith, you've presented a complaint before their assembly court, right? And their judgments by their people in control of their assembly court are saying that you are, this goes to the essence of the word prejudice. It means prejudicial. See, you're not allowing judicial process to respond to the merits of your complaint. They're cutting you off at the knees by presuming prejudicially that Roger's the victim and that you're maliciously and unjustifiably attacking him. Okay?
Well,
go ahead.
May I? Well, I'm working on verbiage. I'm working on verbiage for the next meeting, for the next call, so that it doesn't come across as an attack. It's just going to be a couple of simple questions. Did you or did you not? And I yield and leave it at that, and let the cards fall where they fall.
Yeah. When you compose a basic complaint, I usually like criminal complaints, but I don't know if you need to call it criminal in this case. But either way, it's a complaint challenging Roger's qualified elector status and maybe that of others. And when you take the time to type out your words in a complaint and you step back and you look at it and you think about it, is there a way this could be worded better? What's the power words? What's the central component parts that need to be interacting together dynamically in my sentence structure? And you think about it and you look at the way of rearranging your words in a precise manner that cuts right to the core of the issue in a quick and efficient manner. At that juncture, then you can present it and you can sit back and watch the dust go all up in a big ugly dust storm and start settling down all around you and everybody else in the room in manners which puts you in a real empowered position. Okay, and it's all based upon having stated your complaint upon which relief can be granted in a very simple and efficient manner. Simplicity is a god. It's logic and reason, and it comes together so nice. Anyway, that can be done, and I look forward to working with I'll yield. Go ahead here.
If I may, Michael in Florida, I just wanted to say this. This seemingly on the surface would appear to be, a minor petty issue. Some would even call it, gossip, but it's not. We have a situation where several people that have been involved with Roger have gone to jail, and one died in jail. And there's a pattern here of several people over a long period of time being involved with one person, being Roger Dowdell. And the common denominator is, for all these people, is trouble, jail time. And the two people that are being charged right now in Manatee County are going to be in front of a trial here in about a month. Christopher Hopkins is facing 4 felony charges, the same charges that Terry Trussell faced. Simulating a legal process and filing false or fictitious documents, I think was the other one that is at issue. So that's the real issue here. It's not, he said, she said, or somebody offended me or somebody lied about me. No, those aren't the issues. That's just the cumulative evidence and pattern of behavior of the person being discussed or his followers, his minions. But the real issue here is why do people keep going to jail that have been involved with this one person? That's the issue. And hopefully Chris Hopkins does not go to jail. But if he does, Terry Trussell was sentenced to almost 9 years for the same exact crimes, alleged crimes. So this is a very serious matter, and it deserves attention. And I heard several people hung up. I'm kind of disappointed at that when this was being discussed, but so be it. I yield. Thank you.
This is a worthy issue. A lot of good people just have lives and commitments where they, at certain time, they got to join in a social project, keep the wives happy, things like that. And I'm glad for what people can join with us. I don't think it was anything personal when Brad or the others dropped off here, but this is a legitimate issue. And the other fella that is facing criminal charges, if y'all can reach out to him, I would suggest we prioritize working up a jury verdict for him. I don't think any piece of paper that he can file in his court case would be more powerful than if we filed a jury verdict of our own adjudicating that he's innocent and not guilty of those corrupted charges against him. That's just my view. I guess the first issue is probably proceeding forward with our complaint against Roger, but I would suggest also the fellow that is Hodges, I think you said his name is, he's facing criminal charges. If you guys are at all in contact with him, he obviously needs better help than what Roger can offer. I yield. Go ahead. Is somebody else trying to say something?
Christopher Hopkins is his name.
Okay. Do you or anybody else have any contact with him, Michael?
No, we don't. Roger has kept that tightly sealed. Even when we were in the courtroom or at the courthouse and Christopher was there and we tried to discuss some things with him, Roger was very quick to restrict the conversation. I remember that distinctly on one particular occasion. It was like he was shielding Chris from conversation that could be insightful to him. And I could clearly tell Roger was controlling the environment that Christopher was involved in.
Yeah. Classic control freak behavior, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
All right. I should probably draw a close to our formal business meeting. Our formal business meeting is hereby closed. We are at the 2.5 hour mark here. But we're continuing on in discussion without a whole lot of distraction from our normal discussion here. Is there any further follow-up on any of the issues that we've been discussing here? Is anything anybody else wants to follow up with? Hearing none. I do have a final issue, 4.2, Constitutional Convention issue, that I've talked on before. I've got my YouTube video, 5-minute video talking about constitutional conventions. See, I know we're not popular. I know we don't have a whole lot of people. We're struggling to maintain 5 or 6 or 7 people in a conference here. But that can change real quick. And my personal inclination is not to focus on advertising and recruiting and propaganda. My focus is on substance of legal mechanical tools to build a better machine to help bring peace and justice to the American people. That's what I do. I'm not real good at advertising and promotion and stuff. I'm good at figuring out how the law works and using it to promote justice. And hereunder, I comprehend constitutional issues real well. And one of the big issues there, Section 4.2 of our agenda, Constitutional Convention issue, there's two types of constitutions. There's Roman Empire civil municipal constitutions that are based upon written text documents, and another word for Roman Empire civil municipal law is lex scripta. Lex is law, scripta means writing, and so the Roman Empire civil municipal law is their executive officers say, well, the paper documents that govern us say this, so that's why I'm out here beating the snot out of you and taking your stuff, is because the documents say we've got authority to do that. And that's what written constitutions are allegedly designed to secure the rights through those written constitutions. But those are inherently inferior to the organic, traditional, common law-based constitutional law, because organic, traditional, constitutional, common law requires an assembly of people to responsibly administer justice and respond with a consensus, a collective consciousness of an organic body politic community that is all honorably motivated to come together. See, Roman Empire civil municipal constitutions don't concern themselves with things like qualified electors, but common law constitutions do. That's why we focus on the qualified elector issue and on building a more organic type of constitutional convention. There's a popular movement that's going around. I don't know how many of you have been watching it. There's current calls for constitutional conventions, and over the last 30 years, I've seen this issue raise and lower and raise and lower in prominence. And right now it's pretty much at a peak. It's coming up again to about the highest levels I've ever seen, where people are screaming for a constitutional convention. But they're talking about Article 5 prescribed manner of a constitutional convention within the parameters of the Roman Empire slave trader municipal constitution document. See, that's not a common law organic process constitutional convention. That's a Roman Empire slave trader municipal Article 5 constitutional convention. And so we can do it better. We can do a game changer on all these people that are screaming for a constitutional convention, both pro and con. John Birch Society is inherently opposed to this constitutional convention because they're paranoid. Their standard speech on this issue is, well, the bad guys will take over. We don't have any protections from the bad guys taking over, so it's a bad idea to even call for a constitutional convention. Well, we're at a point in our history here where we got no choice. The ship is going down. Either we're going to call some sort of a constitutional convention, or else we're going to kiss America goodbye. We got to break out of the civil municipal statutory machinery that has been governing us since 1789 in the past. We got to bring together a constituency that is competent. More important than brains or competence is honorable motivation, because if you've got honorable motivation and good faith, then you can educate your audience. You can explain it to them slow and sure, and you can invite in your critics. And then when the more simple people that don't have a lot of time and energy spent on studying these issues see the record before the court, and that we've invited in all our detractors that say that we can't do this, and they aren't appearing, and there's no arguments that are logical or reasonable that are being presented by anybody against us. All you hear is crickets. You can hear a pin drop because there's nobody telling us that we don't know what we're talking about. See, at that point, the more simple people that don't have a lot of depth of knowledge and research on constitutional law, they can start gambling a little bit. They can start trusting those of us that do purport to know how these things work, because obviously the bad guys aren't saying anything. So the presumption is that we must know what we're talking about, and there's no violence being erupted by the resolutions that we're adopting. We can move forward with an organic constitutional common law constitutional convention, assembling 12 people, like on the 12 superstates model that is presented on the front page of our constitutionalgov.us webpage. We can pull this together. It's a supreme jury under authority of the 7th Amendment. It's a Supreme Court of Law. It's what we're doing right here and now. We can just expand these conferences to turn into a constitutional convention. In the video that's linked right here in section 4.2 of our invitation, I talk about how these conferences are, in essence, can easily be turned into a constitutional convention, because there's no separation of powers. We have the executive, legislative, and judicial power all rolled into us in one package. See, normal legislative assemblies can't do that. They're municipal. They're inhibited. There were some good things engineered into that 1789 Constitution, but you got to know where the opportunities are. It's like a rat maze you got to navigate through. And it takes somebody that's been studying these things, and it takes developing trust. Okay, I know I've been preaching these bold things for a long time, and people are a little bit apprehensive about some of the bold things I'm saying, but if you'll notice, there's nobody coming in here and rolling up their sleeves and telling Charles Stewart that he's full of crap. Okay? And there's plenty of opportunities to do that, because I'd make a lot of bold statements. But nobody's doing it. So chances are real good that the majority of the bold statements I'm making are probably right. You can do the probability calculations for that in your mind. And so take a moment to watch that YouTube video if you haven't seen it before. It's 5 minutes. I talk about the constitutional conventions things, and if I had more times, I'd be cutting out speeches like this and adding them on to them, but I'll probably just post this whole video conference on YouTube again without cutting out specific parts like I've done in the past. I'm really making good progress with the economics documents, and we're on the threshold of game changers here, everybody. I do believe this sincerely. God, strike me dead if I lie. We're on the edge of some bold changes, and I'm really glad to have you all on my flanks and hanging with me in these conferences. And that's the end part of my second part under news items of national interest and breaking research here. Is there other comments or questions or open floor? I've pretty much exhausted my avenue of discussion. Anybody have any comments, questions, or additional conversation?
Just a quick question. These will be on Monday nights?
We do one Monday evening conference per month, and we do one Saturday evening conference per month, Richard.
Is that the last,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that the last Monday of the month, or how does that work?
We have been doing the last Mondays of the month, kind of, sort of here. Michael indicated that you guys have got a Monday, last Monday of the month conferences regularly scheduled there in Florida. And since Michael and perhaps you are turning into key players here, I'm thinking of giving myself just a little bit more time to prepare my documents and stuff by bumping it forward to the first Monday of the next month following. That would be the first Monday in August, where we would probably have another Monday evening right-wing conference, and then probably the third Saturday or maybe the fourth Saturday here of July, we would be probably the third Saturday there, we would be having a Saturday evening conference, which we could probably gear for that one if you're anxious to start making some progress here, Richard.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Are you on our email list, Richard? If not, ask Michael to send me your email address so I can add you to the conference invitation list. Okay. Floor is open.
Okay, I'll give you my email to get on the list.
I'm not in a position to take that information right now. Can you either send it to me in email? Do you have a copy of the conference invitation?
Yeah.
Okay, you can just reply to that or
okay.
Any of my email addresses. I've got a number of them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, pleasure having you with us, Richard. We've got open floor discussion for as long as people want to go. If there's no further discussion, we can put a wrap on it here. Does anybody have any further comments or questions here?
May I?
Michael.
Yeah, regarding the amending of the Constitution through a constitutional convention of the states, I really feel that that would be a very dangerous thing to do at this current time. I for about 10 to 12 years was an advocate for a convention of the states. But after much thinking and pondering the issue, especially in the climate we're currently in, I think I look at the Constitution as a big chunk of gold, and it's in a lockbox. Right now, it's in a lockbox by the high threshold required to open the lockbox, three-fourths majority, I think. And I think the founders were very genius in their skill to make it difficult to open a constitutional convention to add to the Constitution or change it. And I always like to ask people, what makes you think amending it or changing it is going to change the behavior of the de facto? They're not obeying it right now, so why would changing it or adding to it make them all of a sudden obey it? I just don't see the logic in that way of thinking. I yield to anyone that would have an answer.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone? Well, I'll take a jab at it. I think we've touched on this issue before. To be clear, your objection is with an Article 5 Civil Municipal Constitutional Convention. I think I've mentioned before that my visualization is to have a common law constitutional convention. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the past you've agreed that that would be a good thing and you would have no problems with that. Am I correct, Michael? Michael, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Define your terms. How would you describe your concept of a common law convention?
Well, first thing we'd do, we'd put you in one seat of the 12 seats of the Constitutional Convention, the inner circle. Maybe the outer circle would be 72 or 144 or 120 or something like that, but the inner circle would consist of 12, and the object would be to build a consensus, a unanimous decision between the 12 of the inner circle, and you would have a seat, at least unless you voluntarily relinquished it to somebody else, and thereunder, anytime you saw anything coming forth being proposed by Lewis or anybody else that you didn't like, you got veto power, and we're not moving forward, and we're not rendering any conclusions unless you agree that it's a good thing to move forward with. That would be a common law, organic, consensus-based constitutional convention.
Okay, next step. What can you do to it by adding or subtracting that you feel will make people in government, in the de facto, obey it? I just don't see the logic in that.
Well, this gets to our enforcement issue that we've also discussed before. Right?
It could be. It could be.
It definitely will, because these jackbaited Nazis are not going to back off until we start making the arrests. Well, that's not... we can make a lot of progress without resorting to the arrest, but it's like playing poker. If people think that you're bluffing, they're not going to respect you, and you're not going to make the progress. See, my constructive notice of treason document, that 20-page document that I've linked in the numerous web pages here and the conference invitation, when we present these kind of documents to people, and those documents talk about how they're involved in a treasonous conspiracy under their present form of government, and we've got the right to organize our peace officers, our town constables, and to recruit them and to pay them through alternative currency process to enforce our legitimate due process of common law judgments. When they fall silent in response to documents like that being presented to them, then at that point it's default judgment. And at that point, the authority to start moving forward with enforcement falls into our hands, because we've already asked these people if they got any objection, and they're not saying anything to us. We do a few follow-up calls and emails and have a few other people from other angles asking, hey, they're really starting to move forward. They got these arrest warrants. They're really talking about issuing here. And are you sure you don't have any objections to what they're doing here? Please tell us. We don't want to do anything unlawful. We don't want to cause any breach of the peace. Please tell us if you got any damn objections. And then they fall silent again. Then it's time to start arresting some jackbooted Nazis like Hillary Clinton. I'm sure we can think of a few others. There's some people that deserve to be arrested. And if we choose our targets carefully, if we choose our targets that everybody knows they really, really, really are criminals, like Anthony Fauci maybe, okay? Some real, obvious criminals, Bill Gates maybe, okay? We can do this. And once we take out, we lawfully use due process of law scrupulously to authorize arrest warrants, and we execute the arrest warrants, then that's over the hump and we're on the downhill side, because all of a sudden a grassroots popular people's common law jurisdiction court has executed arrest warrants against national figures, and there's no repercussions so far, and they're talking about doing more. At that point, it'll be downhill from there. We'll be on the way to restoring the republic. That's what I visualize. I yield. And I think we can do that. I believe it's God's will. This is bringing biblical Torah law principles to bear in our American organic body politic. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about things like this. But I'm kind of a fanatic. And I can comprehend how a lot of the rest of you might be just a smidgen apprehensive about jumping on everything I'm saying here. That's cool. We're going to work on the economics issues for the time being, and we'll embrace other issues that people are concerned about, like the issue with Roger and other issues. But there's a lot of points where I think I've got bigger and more powerful tools in my toolbox, and they're available to help with any project that anyone wants to bring before the Supreme Court of Law for the USA. Okay? And I'm not just going to be throwing smoke and mirrors arguments like Roger is talking about. Argue about the Bar Member Association being British accredited registered. Boy, oh boy, you start talking about that, they'll be so embarrassed, they'll drop the whole case and they'll let you go free. I'm sorry. I don't do stuff like that. The tools in my toolbox are meant to really twist the nuts and bolts rather than just put it in a different light.
May I?
But I'm kind of, Michael, please. Yes, I get tired of hogging the microphone all the time. Please, Michael, go ahead.
That's all right. I'm going to have to get off here and call it a night. We've got an early morning.
No, that's right.
So.
Should we call it an evening here? Is there any objection from anyone for our bringing the conference to a close? Hearing none? Okay. This is the 28th of May, I believe. June. 28th of June, 2021. I am Charles Stewart in Coleman, Texas. And this is the conclusion of our conference for the Supreme Court of Law on this date. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And may God's Holy Spirit guide, bless, and protect you. Good night, everybody.
Amen. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Charles. Good night, all.
Good night, Richard.
Good night, y'all.
Good night. Yeah.